Well, children, where there's so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think between the women of the North and the Negroes of the South all thinking about rights, you white men gonna be in a fix pretty soon. What was all this talking about? This man over there, yes, you, he said women's have to be helped into carriages, lifted over ditches, and to have the best place everywhere. Well, nobody ever helped me in no carriage, over no mud puddles, or gives me any best place, and ain't our woman. Look at me. Look at my arms. I done plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could help me. And ain't our woman. Then they talk about this thing in the head, but I'm not going there yet, because I want to tell you that I done birthed 13 children and saw them most all sold out to slavery. And when I cried out with a mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me, and ain't that a woman. Then they talks about this thing in the head. What's that they call it? They call it intellect. Intellect, that's it, sugar. What's that got to do with women's rights or Negroes' rights? If my cup don't hold but a pint and yours hold a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half a pint? Huh? Then, this man in the black, yes, you, yes, he says, women's can't have as much rights as men's because Christ wasn't a woman. Well, where your Christ come from? Where your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man didn't have nothing to do with it. Now, if the first woman God ever made was able to take this world and turn it upside down, all these women's hair together ought to be able to get it back and turn it right side up again. And now they's asking to do it. You men better let them. That's all I have to say. Much obliged for you listening to me. Thank you very much.
Good morning, students, staff, and members of the community.
We are so excited for you to be here with us celebrating 100 years of women's suffrage on this beautiful e-learning day. I'm Colby Flade.
And I'm Katia Torres.
We are both seniors at Round Lake High School, and we are honored to be here hosting this event with you.
We would like to take a moment to welcome esteemed board members, Round Lake administrators, fifth graders from local elementary schools, NEA representatives all the way from Washington, D.C., and all 2,000 Round Lake students for joining us today.
Before we get started, let us take a moment, please, to introduce these three accomplished and inspiring women in our government. Please give a warm round of applause to Melinda Bush, our Illinois State Senator. Mary Ross Cunningham, Vice Chair of the Lake County Board. And Joyce Mason, our Illinois State Representative. Good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Each politician will have 3 minutes to answer each of the following 2 questions that had been asked by members of the community. Let's get started.
All righty, question number 1. Ladies, what challenges did you face as women entering the world of politics? We'll start with Senator Bush.
Yeah, so when I first ran for an elected office was actually 1989, which was just yesterday for some of us, a long time ago for some of you, and for some that's so distant you don't even know that those years existed. But anyway, when I first ran, the village of Grayslake had never seen a woman mayor. I was running for trustee in the village of Grayslake. They'd never seen a woman mayor. We had mostly men on the board, and frankly, people that had been there a long time. It was pretty rare for someone that just moved to a community to become interested in their local government and run for office. I then served on our county board. I ran in 2008, and I ran against a gentleman who held the seat prior to me and obviously won. And then in 2012, I ran for the Illinois State Senate. I think the challenges for women at that time are still the same that they are today. Many times women aren't asked to run for office. Parties don't generally support them really quickly, and they find it a little more difficult to raise money because of those things. But I think that things are changing, and we've seen those things change over the last years. In 2018, in Lake County in particular, we elected, I believe, 9 new women to state and county offices, and we elected a female congresswoman. So that's pretty big movement in a short amount of time. Some of those challenges still remain, but I see them changing, and I see more women standing up and saying, we're not just asking for equality, we're demanding equality, we want to be treated equally, and we have every right to hold those offices and to seek the highest offices in the land.
Great, thank you. All right. Vice Chair Cunningham, would you care to answer that as well?
Thank you. Also, Mira Ross, Cunningham County. When I first got into politics, voter right came in 1965. So I was a veteran nurse at the VA hospital. I was a union steward. I was a tenant president organization. I was always in the community doing something. And our first women couldn't vote till 1965 when the voter right came. And now women can do a lot. I came on the county board in 2002. I first ran. It was a new district that was cut. And I ran, and I won by 100% of the vote. Women's rights. Years back in the 20s and the 30s, women was housewives and homemakers. They didn't have that right. But now I'm very proud to know that women can not be an equal to a man, but women can do just as much. I became a widow in 1968. That's when I joined the King March in Alabama, where I'm from. And I had to step up to the plate and rear my children, 4 children. One of my sons is a mayor of Waukee now. I taught him political. So it's always good that women have this right to do this, that to step up and help the men's. I say help the men's out. That's what we do. And I'm happy to be on the county board to help set the policy and make changes and oversee the agency, because our county is a large county and it's growing for all different entities. So that's what I did. I'm happy that this job, when you become a senator, state rep, county, whatever, you have to have guts, feelings to do this, because you got to be ready for anything that throw after you. You got to be ready for it. So I'm happy to be where I'm at today.
Thank you. All right, Representative Mason.
Thank you. Well, I'm kind of the newbie at the table here. I was just elected. Actually, a year ago today, Facebook tells me, was election day. So it's pretty exciting to look back and look at the pictures and the videos and the incredible journey that I've been on since then. And you know, I will say, being as part of this women's wave you might have heard about, one thing that really helped was having amazing trailblazers like these two fabulous women that I am so incredibly honored to be sitting with here today. Both Melinda and Mary have lifted me up through my journey, have shared advice, have given me shoulders to cry on, and toughened me up when I needed it. And I think that that is really, really helpful as we go. You know, another thing that I was very fortunate to have is because this was kind of the year of the women, suddenly there were all of these trainings available. Women run for office, it's free, come on, you know, all sorts of organizations were doing that. And I went to one and there was a panel of elected officials, and there were 3 men and 3 women. And the question was posed to them, what were you afraid of when you decided to run for office? And the women, you know, went and they said, well, gosh, I was afraid for my children and what that would be like. And I was afraid about, you know, being able to have enough money. And I was afraid that people would be mean to me. And I was afraid that I wasn't smart enough. And I was afraid that I didn't have a political science major. And they went down the row and, you know, talked about all of the things that they thought about and going to that decision and making that decision. And I kid you not, every single man went, no fear. What do you mean? I just woke up and decided to run. Oh, yeah, I just decided I wanted to be in politics. And I think that mindset, you know, women, those traditional roles are still there. You know, we're all mothers and caregivers, and, you know, there's a societal expectation that that is first and foremost, right? So there's not only the demands of running for office, but then there's the thought like, oh my gosh, I have to spend 5 months in Springfield now. How am I going to care for my family? What am I going to do? So number one, statistics show that women have to be asked multiple times in order to run for office. And thank you, Senator Bush. Thank you. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't without her. And two, you know, women do go through all of this thought process about being good enough. And I think that's something we have to overcome. We're good enough, we're smart enough, we have a ton to contribute, and 51% of our elected officials should be women.
Thank you.
Our second and final question for our panel is going to be, what challenges do women in politics and working women in the United States still face today? We'll start with you, Senator Bush, again.
So you want to know what challenges we still face today, now that we're there? The challenges are still there. They're very real. As I listen to Representative Mason talk about questioning whether you should be there, whether you're good enough, smart enough, equal to those around you. That happens to me regularly still. This is my 8th year in the Illinois State Senate, and I'm a pretty respected member at this point. And most days I remember that. And then other days I question whether I should be there, whether I'm smart enough. Am I as good as the men that have been there for a long time? I think that women are much more inclined to question and to constantly look at ourselves and measure ourselves. I think it's the one thing that I struggle with, and I believe that women and young people have to be aware of this. You are only as equal as you believe you are. If you believe that others are better than you, that you are not good enough, then that is who you are. You have to believe in yourself. You have to be willing to stand up for what you believe in, say what you believe, say it kindly, understand. You know, you don't stand up to people in a way that is rude, attacking, but if you think something is wrong, you need to tell someone that. If you think something is right, you need to stand for that strongly. And if you are a woman today, you need to absolutely get up in the morning, remind yourself that no one is better than you, smarter than you, more capable than you, simply because they're a different sex than you. Women bring many times different qualities to the table. I find we're much more collegial. We're much more willing to work together to get to a solution. I think there are men that do that also, but that's not something that we valued in men through the years. Men really, and I hope this isn't the case today, men of my generation really grew up believing they had to know everything. Don't share what you know, because if I share what I know with you, you'll know the same things, and I won't be able to be more powerful than you. I think most women believe, I know I do, if I tell you everything I know, then you're going to tell me everything you know, and then we're all going to know everything, and then we can really fix things, right? So I think that's really important. But those challenges are still there today. I want you to know the Illinois State Senate has never had a female president. They have never had a female Speaker of the House, and we've never had a female governor. Those things still need to be changed. Representative Mason talked about the 51%. We firmly believe in that. We're at about 23% right now, women, and even less women of color. The Latino population, Latinas, and the black population, we're about 23%. The white population, they're at about maybe 5 to 6%. It's wrong. Our representation should look like this. That's your challenge. That's what you should be thinking about.
Yeah, thank you. Going on with Vice Chair Cunningham.
Thank you. The National Organization for Women is now the challenge that we have today. The struggle is still there. You're in this, but it's still there. When you're running, it's still there. And you look at some things that when you're there, you only want to vote, but you had to caucus to get when you want something passed. And when you don't get it passed, you can't get intimidated and upset about that you didn't get it. Because in this position that we are in here, Springfield, federal levels, county level, city level, when you're in this position, it always gonna be you haven't done enough. You haven't done enough. But you have to do what you have to do, as long as you got contact with your constituents. And it's just a struggle. I think politics gonna always be a struggle. It'll never not be in a struggle. But all the young people that's sitting out here today, you are a future leader. You are a future leader. You have to know now, when you get in the 7th grade, I would say, some kids in the 5th grade, they know what they want to be when they grow up. So you have to think positive. You have to think that, hey, I want to be a science. I want to be the president. We never had a woman president. We was that close, but we didn't get it, so we had to move on. That's what gets you to make you be like, I'm not gonna do it. Don't never give up, and whatever you do, when you turn 18, register. Get yourself registered. Register on your own. You can register your own self when you're 18. Parents don't have to register you. So you can get ready, because we're not gonna be here always. We're gonna be gone, and who's gonna take our spot? Someone have to step in, and it has to be somebody like you. Make up your mind what you want to do, how you gonna do it, because this is not an easy task. This is very hard. You got to take all the bad talk, all the good talk, but you got to, the good have to overweight the bad. So just sometimes I go home and lay down at night and I wonder, what did I do wrong? Did I satisfy someone? You don't know what what is what, because you don't know how other people think of you in politics when it comes to politics. Some politics, you know, we look back at years how politics was corrupted, but that don't mean we are. We don't have to be corrupt because we go back at I watch a lot of the old tapes from back Hitler's. It was rough, it was bad, but we in office to take care of our peoples that come out, citizens that vote for us. So they have to have some kind of, they have to have, you know that we is there for them. We have to be there for them, myself, because it's rough. It ain't nothing nice. I'm not trying to discourage you, but we need you guys to grow up and say, hey, I'm gonna run for school board. Education is important. I come out of an education family. Education are very important. That's the first thing you want to do. Thank you. Stop.
Thank you. Wow. And Representative Mason.
Thank you. So, considering some of the barriers that still exist, you know, I do believe it's getting easier because the more women that enter the legislature, the county board, the easier it is for young people like yourselves to look and say, hey, that person looks like me, so that's a possibility for me. And that was not the case before. So that's a plus. But, you know, there are still those logistical roadblocks, you know, women, again, being the caregivers, expecting to hold most of the burden of families, and then there are things like significant travel, schedules that change on a dime. You know, my schedule is always changing and evolving, and there are last minute things, and you know, that's not conducive to the person that's supposed to be in charge of that stable home situation and be there for the kids. And then there are the stereotypes, like, you know, you see a man who is being really aggressive or assertive, let's say powerful, and a woman can be doing the same thing and be perceived as something else. You know, she's not nice, she's icky, I won't use bad words, but, you know, people don't view the same behavior the same for both genders. So it's a continuing evolution to try to change that mindset, that women can be powerful and they can use their voices and speak up for themselves and for the people that they represent, and that's not a bad thing. So for all of the young women out there, I encourage you, you know, my mother always taught me, like, don't make waves, you know, be nice, make sure everyone's happy. Well, yeah, you can be kind and you can, you know, try to make sure everyone's happy, but you are fully entitled to use your voice, to stand up for what's right, to speak your truth, and that's absolutely okay, and that's a good thing, and we need to wrap ourselves around that. I also, you know, I think that there are still perceptions out there that men are somehow more competent sometimes, and we have to, you know, blast that right out of there. So I think just the ongoing stereotypes, and then again, some of those functional things that we need to figure out how to work around, you know, to allow more people to join the legislature or join the boards or get involved. And we need to maybe make them more friendly to the kinds of lifestyles that we live. And we have lots of technology that we can use to start implementing some of those things. So I'm excited about what the future holds. I'm grateful for these two amazing women next to me, and I'm incredibly honored to be able to take the voices of the people I represent to Springfield with me. Thanks.
Thank you. And can we get another round of applause for a beautiful panel?
Yes. Thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you. All right, so now we're gonna shift our attention to Ghostlight Readers Theater as they perform their piece, A Lot to Say, composed of short stories told by women in history and in the world today who have been impacted by women's rights and discrimination. Let us welcome Marcos Cadena, Selena Heinlein, Ariana Hirtzer, Ava Klein, and Katia Torres to the stage as they perform this piece.
The state of the world today demands that women become less modest and dream, plan, act, risk on a larger scale. Women have a lot to say about how to advance women's rights, and governments need to learn from that, listen to the movement, and respond.
Les mères, les filles, les soeurs, représentants de la nation,
daughters,
demandent
sisters,
d'être constitués
representatives of
en
the
Assemblée
nation,
nationale,
all demand to be
considérant que la
consulted
ignorance
into
la
a national
mépris des droits de la
assembly.
femme.
Given that
C'est la
ignorance,
sous-cause de
disregard,
marqueur
or the
public à la
disdain of the
corruption
rights of
des
women are
gouvernements.
the only
À raison
causes
de
of public
disposition
misfortune
dont une
and the
déclaration
corruption of
à droite
governments,
nationale
have
inaliénable
decided
accepte
to
la
make
femme.
known in a
Afin
solemn
que cette
declaration the natural,
déclaration
inalienable, and
consulte
sacred
à
rights
tous
of
les
women.
membres des corps
This
sociaux.
declaration,
L'appel
constantly in the
sans
thoughts
cesse
of
les
all
droits
members
et
of
les devoirs
society,
afin
will
que les
ceaselessly
actes et
remind
devoirs
them
des
of their
femmes
rights and
et ses devoirs
responsibilities,
des hommes
allowing the
avant un
political
acte
acts of
chose.
women
Elle se
and those of
compare
men
avec la
to be
loi
compared in
instituée
all
politique
respects to the
en
aims of
son plus
political
respecté.
institutions,
En font
which
que
will
la
become increasingly
recommandation des
respected,
citoyens
so that the
font des
demands of female
documents de
citizens
principe
henceforth,
ciblés à
based on simple and
Tournant toujours en
incontestable
mention de la
principles,
Constitution,
will always
des
seek to
bons
maintain the
mots, avoir un
Constitution,
droit.
good
En
morals,
conséquence,
and the
le
happiness
sexe
of all.
supérieur.
As a
En
result,
beauté comme
the
en
sex that is
droite,
superior
dans
in
la
beauty
souffrance
as it is
maternelle,
encouraged during the
le
pains of
décret
childbirth,
en présent
recognizes
la
and
hospice,
declares,
elle
in the
HSFM,
presence and under the
le droit
auspices
sauveur
of
à
the
la femme,
Supreme
à la
Being, the
citoyenne.
following rights of women and the female citizen.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal.
Here, in this very first paragraph of the Declaration, it is the assertion of the natural right of all to the ballot. For how can the consent of the governed be given if the right to vote be denied?
The world has never yet seen a truly great and virtuous nation because in the degradation of women, the very fountains of life are poisoned at their source. The laws given on Mount Sinai for the government of man and women were equal. The precepts of Jesus make no distinction. It's not Christianity, but priestcraft that has subjected women as we find her.
To have drunkards, idiots, horse racing, rum-selling rowdies, ignorant foreigners, and silly boys fully recognized, while we ourselves are thrust out from all the rights that belong to citizens. It is too grossly insulting to be longer quietly submitted to. The right is ours. Have it we must, use it we will.
Learning while at school that the charge for the education of girls was the same as that for boys, and that when they became teachers, women received only half as much as men for their services, the injustice of this distinction was so apparent.
I thought that the chief thing to be done in order to equal boys was to be learned and courageous. So I decided to study Greek and learn to manage a horse.
There will never be complete equality until women themselves help to make laws and elect lawmakers.
The more I think on the present condition of women, the more I am oppressed with the reality of their degradation. The prolonged slavery of woman is the darkest page in human history.
Trust me that as I ignore all law to help the slave, so will I ignore it all to protect an enslaved woman. Oh, if I could but live another century and see the fruition of all the work for women. There is so much yet to be done.
The individual woman is required 1,000 times a day to choose either to accept her appointed role and thereby rescue her good disposition out of the wreckage of her self-respect, or else follow an independent line of behavior and rescue her self-respect out of the wreckage of her good disposition. If I had my life to live over, I would do it all again. But this time, I'd be nastier. We're half the people. We should be half the Congress. Men and women are like right and left hands. It doesn't make sense not to use both.
Ha llegado la hora de la mujer que
The
comparte
time
una
has
causa
come for women who
pública
share in a
y ha
public
muerto
cause,
la
and
hora
her
de la
time as a
mujer como
forceless
valor
and numerical
numérico
statistic
dentro
in
de la
society is
sociedad.
dead. The time
Ha
has
llegado
come
la
for
hora
women
de
to
la mujer
think,
que piensa,
judge,
juzga,
reject, or
rechaza
accept,
o
and her time to
acepta,
witness,
y ha muerto
bound
la
and
hora de la
perilous,
mujer
the
que
volatile
existe,
political creation
atada
of the future of a
impotente a la
country is dead.
caprichosa elaboración
I demanded
política
more
de
rights
los
for women
destinos
because I know what women had to
Exigí más
endure.
derechos para
I
las
will
mujeres
return
porque
and
sé
I
que las
will be
mujeres tuvieron
millions.
que aguantar. Volveré y seré millones.
I will always work for human rights for all people. I would like to be known as a person who is concerned about freedom and equality and justice and prosperity for all people. Memories of our lives, of our works, and our deeds will continue in others. There is no future without education. I see the energy of young people as a real force for positive change. One person can change the world.
Economic equity is an enormous empowerment of women. Having jobs that provide income means that women can be a more effective force, a more equal force in the political process. Women with income take themselves more seriously, and they are taken more seriously. Who knows what women can be when they are finally free to become themselves?
Women of the world unite. Don't iron while the strike is hot.
Hard hats for soft broads.
I am not a Barbie doll.
Storks fly, why can't mothers?
We are the 51% minority.
Politics is power, and people want more power than they want money. But women are never going to get to have power until they demand it and go out and get it. Nobody ever gives up power voluntarily.
The story of a woman's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist nor to any one organization, but to the collective efforts of all who care about human rights.
We have the oldest written constitution still in force in the world, and it starts out with 3 words: we, the people. Every constitution written since the end of World War II includes a provision that men and women are citizens of equal stature. Ours is done. I was a proponent of the ERA. The women of my generation and my daughter's generation, they were very active in moving along the social change that would result in equal citizenship stature for men and women. I am sensitive to discrimination on any basis because I have experienced that upset.
1 in 3 women may suffer from abuse and violence in her lifetime. This is an appalling human rights violation, yet it remains one of the invisible and under-recognized pandemics of our time. But it is not inevitable. We can put a stop to this.
The message of our campaign is, make every mother and child count. This campaign is not just about health. It is also a powerful call for radical progress in women's rights and the rights of their children. Too often, the health of mothers and children does not count. In too many parts of the world, they are forgotten. Every day, we hear about the dangers of cancer, heart disease, and AIDS. But how many of us realize that in much of the world, the act of giving life to a child is still the biggest killer of women of childbearing age? Investing in women's lives is an investment in sustainable development, in human rights in future generations, and consequently in our own long-term national interest. Children with healthy mothers are more likely to survive childhood, attend school, and live healthy, productive lives.
I come from an insular religious community with extremely rigid gender roles, where women are trained to not think or question. I was taught not to be seen or heard. My sole purpose was to cook, serve my husband, and have children. All my life, every single decision was made for me. Every aspect of my life was carefully guided by laws and customs. It takes a village to end child marriage, and we can't solve a problem that nobody knows exists. We want people to spread the word, to call on the federal government to act, and to send a strong message to all states that we need laws and policies in place that protect against forced and child marriage.
My father did not like us going to school. He told us that girls growing up not being married is a problem in our society. Because of his beliefs, the girls in our family only go to the end of primary school. My father also believes that if girls don't get married young, they won't have children because they will be too old. My father also wanted us to get married so he could get a bride price and receive a lot of cows. I was 13 years old when my father arranged my marriage. The man who was supposed to marry me came with his family to discuss the date of our marriage. He was 29. I wanted to go to secondary school like my brothers so that one day I can help the Maasai. I want them to know the importance of sending their girls to school. The Maasai need to learn about the importance of education. All boys and girls should have the same right to be educated.
I spoke out publicly on behalf of girls and our right to learn, and this made me a target. On my way home from school, a masked gunman boarded my school bus and asked, "Who is Malala?" He shot me on the left side of my head, and I woke up 10 days later in a hospital in Birmingham, England. The doctors and nurses told me about the attack and that people around the world were praying for my recovery. I spoke out publicly on behalf of girls and our right to learn, and this made me a target. After months of surgeries and rehabilitation, I knew I had a choice. I could live a quiet life, or I could make the most of this new life I had been given. I was determined to continue my fight until every girl could go to school.
I was placed into government care just before my 13th birthday, and I, like so many other kids in government care, fell prey to the predators that hover around group homes, foster homes, and anywhere vulnerable kids congregate. It's hard to describe the exploitation. It was just everywhere. It was just a part of life. Girls would come to the corner I was working, beat up or looking downcast because they had been emotionally abused. There was this one girl who tried working my corner. We got into a huge fight, and then I realized how young she was. I tried to protect her. She was supposed to be in a foster home. Then one day, she just disappeared. I saw her pimp a few weeks later and asked him where she was. He just laughed and said, "She's gone. I sold her at a truck stop."
We are asking people to understand that slavery still exists today. In fact, according to a recent New York Times article, if you count the number of women and children in bonded labor, domestic slavery, or sexual slavery today, there are more slaves in the world than at any other time in history. We have to start looking at the world through women's eyes. How are women's rights, peace, and development defined from the perspective of the lives of women? It's also important to look at the world from the perspective of the lives of diverse women, because there is not a single woman's view anymore. There is a single man's view.
All right, we want to thank the Legal Women Voters, Democracy Schools, and the Opportunity Coalition for collaborating with our school to make this event possible. Everyone in the audience and live streaming at home, please keep an eye out for our next e-learning event happening in February, and join us in celebrating women empowerment at our event on March 5th.
Please let us give another round of applause for the Round Lake High School Readers Theater and our lovely panel of inspirational women.